in the beginning. Okay, I think it's final time to model something. So let's make a small piece of road and export it in the game. So I switched to the top viewport, and the shortcut key is T. And excuse me, I need to drink so I don't lose my voice. Let's make first a line, which will be our track piece center line. I use some snap functions in this one, so it makes it easier to draw the line. So I have a grid points and vertex over here. So let's draw some line and maybe a little bit curve over here. Okay. Let's give it a little bit brighter color. And let's give it a name, track center line. Okay. Then I wanted to make the vertex ticks visible. So this happens in the right click. You can have this menu over here, and here you find object properties, and here is a point for vertex ticks. At this point, its line is bloggy. So let's smooth it out a little bit. Let's make this vertex type smooth. It's not still good, so let's make them bezier and edit them hand a little bit. I think that is good. Okay. And the next thing what we need, it's another spline, which is actually the track cross section. So I turn the snap on and draw another line. Let's make it 10 meters wide, like this. And let's make vertex ticks visible here also. And now the method what I'm going to use is lofting. So it's good practice to work on the top viewport on this one. So let's select our track center line, go in the geometry tab, and the roll down menu we can find compound objects. But before we loft anything, we actually need to set up our materials. So let's stop that. So we have a track center line over here, and we have a track cross section over here. So next thing what we need to do is set up some textures. So let's copy something somewhere. Let's take another. What we need here is asphalt spec map, normal map, multi-map, multiply map. Then we need a blank texture. And let's see, let's go down here. Where is our, actually too long, marbles. And race crew. So let's copy. These files to our maps folder. And actually what we still need is the main road texture. So let's go back. let's see, we should have track main. Okay, let's use that for this session. Okay, now we have textures for our road material in our assets maps folder. Track main is the main diffuse or albedo texture. Asphalt mult is the multiply map. There's a normal map, specular map. There's a race crew map, marbles map, and blank texture which is needed for reflections. Okay, so let's start set up the material for our road. So let's press M, which is shortcut for the material editor. In rFactor world, we need to set up so-called submulti materials. So let's make it visible at first. Let's click the standard. Material type is standard. So let's click that. We can get the material map browser open. And let's select the multisub object over here. And we will discard the old material. Now, let's make this name terrain, for example. And we can make several multisub materials in different material balls. So you can have one material set for terrain, from one for track size objects, and so on. And now what we can see here, it's actually these are the items where we are building our actual materials. And as you can see, each material has own ID number. And this is very important thing to notice when we set up our materials. So let's go to the rFactor wiki, which is very good source for information. Let's go in modding information. And here we should find real-world shader. So we can check out here how the material should set up in the 3ds Max. So we have 7 stages here. So let's give it first a name, our material. Let's say it's road A wet, for example. And again, we have here button for material browser. And this sub-material should be gMotor material. And let's extend this navigator so you can see what is in here. So we have one multisub object, and under that we have our first material, which is road A, and it's gMotor material. And that's how the materials works in 3ds Max. So we can have here wall, we can here Armco and whatever. And we can set up our materials over here. So, but let's concentrate on our railroad material at first. So in this shader rollout, we should find here railroad shader. Okay. And now we have 7 stages here, as we can see in the wiki. 7 stages. We have placed correct textures on each stages and given a correct mapping channel on it. So let's start. Our first texture is the albedo diffuser albedo map, which is the classic albedo long frequency details. This is our main road texture. So let's browse to correct folder, moddev, locations, where is our sandbox, assets, maps, and here are track mine. And now it's loaded, and there's a mapping channel. So let's check out what it should be. It should be number 1, as it is. And let's click this show map button. So we want to see this in the viewport when we start applying material to our mesh. So next stage is multiply map. So asphalt multi. It's a detail map. And let's check out for the correct channel. It's number 2. So map channel is 2. Let's go in stage 3. And here comes the normal map. So let's browse asphalt norm. And here we have 2 options for the mapping channel. We have 1 or 2. What this means is that you can actually make a normal map from the mine texture, which might be a different size than the same size at that main map. So then we can map it in the same channel. It contains the identical mapping chords of the main texture. Other option is that because our normal map is same size as, for example, our multiply map, so it's more wiser to use same channel as the multiply map. So we don't need to worry about it. Will look better in this way. And let's go to the next stage, which is 4. And here it's a race crew map. So let's select our race crew and check out the mapping channel, which is 3. So 3, okay. Next stage is specular map, which is a mapping channel 2. So track spec, mapping channel 2. Then the next stage is marble map, and it's in the mapping channel 2 also, as we can see over here. And the last one, it's actually placeholder texture, which this stage 7 is needed for reflections. So what we need to do here, it's basically you can use whatever texture you like. I use a very small blank texture. And what it's important here, you have to tick live mapper to make reflections effective in the real roads in the end. So, quick recap our material settings and setting up the real road material. First, we made a multi-sub object. Under there, we made our first material, which is road A. Road A, we defined it is a G-motor material. Let's give it a little bit specular color. And we want it to be the real world shader, and we set up all the stages and textures and mapping channels in correct places. Okay. Now our material is ready. Let's give them to our splines. Drag across section. And we can check out here that it has correct material ID, which is 1, and material name is row A. And also, let's double check this one. Yes, set ID is 1, and material name is row A. So it's all good. Okay, now let's select our track center line. Go to Create tab, Geometry, Compound Object, and Loft. And next, what we need to do is to get the shape of the track. So basically, we need to tell the lofter our cross section. So click Get Shaped Active and select our cross section. As you can see, it's black now. Don't worry. We go to the skin parameters. Let's take out banking and adaptive path steps. And we want to flip normals. So the poly is normals are facing up. Now I'll press F3, which gives us wireframe mode. And we can see here in the surface parameter rollout, we can define steps for the shape or steps for the path. So if we increase shape steps, it will increase polygon resolution on the mesh. And if we increase the path steps, it will do the same in the other way around. So, but in this case, let's keep it that. That's pretty good. Now I press F3 again to get the smooth and highlight. And for the clarity, I press F4 so I get the wireframe also there. Okay, so basically we have our piece of road ready. Let's give it a correct name. Race surface 1. And let's bring up the material editor and apply material on it. And now when we had the material ID 1, it also defines correct material instantly on it. So now I hide the wireframe. So we have material on it, but when we zoom it or look it, it's not good at all. So we need to scale it a little bit. And how to do it? It's actually in here, surface parameters. We have a length repeat and width repeat. We can repeat the texture in the width size. So let's put 4. As you can see, it squeezes it. But we don't want to do that because it's already an incorrect width. But if we zoom close, we can see it's very scratched. These pixels are not square at all. So we need to scale it a little bit. So let's start to increase the length repeat. For example, 5. It's not square enough yet, so let's increase it more. Even a little bit more. Now we have a square pixels on our mesh. So if we zoom out a little bit, it's actually mapped correctly. Not correctly, but we can fix it afterwards. So now it's scaled correctly on it. Now we can convert this by pressing right click on the mouse. We can convert it to editable poly. So we don't have any lofting parameters anymore. So next, what we need to do, our main texture is rotated in the 90 degrees, so it's shown correctly. So let's select all polygons. Find out Xform modifier. Sorry. Whoever Xform modifier. And we want to rotate it about 90 degrees. And when we zoom close, it looks good. So let's collapse this stack. Now our road piece mine texture is mapped correctly, and it bends correctly through the corner too. So we're happy with that. But as you remember, we have several other textures and mapping channels to take care of. So let's move on with that. Next, we need to map our multiplied texture on it, which on the mapping channel too. Let's make that visible in our viewport. And we can hide material editor pressing M. Let's select all polys and find whoever unwrap. And now, as you remember, our multiply texture is in channel 2. So we want to map to channel 2. And if we look closer, it's pretty much okay, but maybe it's scaled too big. So let's edit it a little bit. Let's select all polys, edit, and let's increase it a little bit, scale it bigger. Maybe that is okay for now. So now our multiply map is okay. Let's bring up our material editor again, pressing M. And let's go next to the list. Normal map, we don't need to map that individually because it's already used the same mapping codes, what we defined in the multiply map. So let's move on. Race groove is next. Okay. Let's make that visible in viewport and hide our material editor, pressing M. Let's select all polys. Let's bring up unwrap. Let's see what we have here. This is actually pretty good because when we loft our track piece, in the same time, it usually maps pretty much correctly on these alternative textures in the shape of the track. But if we can look closer, this is not good enough because we need to make race groove more stretch around, so it will be more realistic. So we can do it with the Xform modifier. So let's delete this. Bring out the Xform modifier. And we are mapping channel 3. Oh, sorry. Let's go back a little bit. This is something 3ds Max related thing. We need to do it with unwrap modifier first. We need to move it a little bit so it gets individual mapping chords. That's enough. And let's collapse it back to the poly. And now we can scratch it with Xform. So in the same time, we basically do the same thing what we do in the lofting on the main road texture. We scratch it in the correct form. So, whoa, I'm on the wrong channel. We need to map channel 3. We can stretch it a little bit so it will be looking more realistic in the game. In the end, this race groove map, it's better a spline map through the driving line, not like this in the through the center line. It will be more realistic then, but for saving of time, let's do it this way at this point. So let's say that it's good. We can collapse it again. And let's move on. Bring out our material editor, pressing M. What we have here, spec map. It's already have mapped because it uses same mapping chords as a multiply map. Marbles, it's use same mapping chords as multiply map, so it's already there. And the 7th states don't actually need mapping chords. So we are basically done with the track piece now. So let's bring back the main texture. And now I'm going to switch to perspective viewport by pressing M, which is shortcut for it. Let's rotate it a little bit. Over here it looks pretty good. So now we are ready to export it. So let's go back to the Hammer tab. We have already set up, we exported correctly. We have set up the scene file. We have set up the mesh file path. And let's go to the instance rollout. Over here, we have some options which needs to be taken care of in the road surface. We need to tick the collide, hat, and deform. So it will be forming the race groove on the way. Also, we need to tick Omni. So the race surface is lit on the night lights, under night lights. An extremely important thing is that we use gMotor normals. You should not use max normals or pointing normals in normal situations at all. Always export things in gMotor normals. Otherwise, the GMT's file size will increase greatly, and it will cause some troubles in the future too. So now we have a setup of track piece. So it will be collide, hat, and deform. We need to tag Omni, so track piece will be lit under night lights, and we have to use gMotor normals. And now we do mesh. Okay. And now if we go back, sandbox, assets, and GMT, here is our race surface GMT, which we just exported. What we do need next is a scene file, SCN file, so the track viewer can find and load this track piece to the viewer. So we select object and hit do scene button. Conversion successful. Okay, let's bring out track viewer. First, we have to tell it where to find it. So we need to make few path definitions, rFactor, mod dev, and location. This is our root path. Sorry. This is actually what we now do. It's define a scene file. So sandbox and sandbox.gb. It can be filed there. And next we need to define the root path. Documents, rFactor, whatever, locations. That is good. Let's hit OK. Error loading mesh. Something went wrong. Let's do it again. Okay, that's better. This is actually very common in track view. Sometimes when you first time look at the new scene, it might behave that way, but just define the paths again and hit load. It loads it. So here is our track piece in the game. Just modeled. And if we can look at it a little bit different light, so it different. Oh, too dark. Sorry. Okay. Now we have successfully made our first track piece in the game.